and probably looking forward. And I'm happy to give the word to Carmit. You are the one who starts. So the stage is yours. Thank you very much. We are recording, and I think we will have the opportunity to ask some questions in the end. So if you have questions, please, you can either send them in the chat or write them down for yourself, and then in the end we will give you the microphone, and we will probably be 1.5 hours instead of 1 hour as announced, because otherwise it will just not be enough time. So thank you for understanding.
Okay.
Carmit, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for coming to listen to us, and good evening. I will do my best to share my presentation and tell my story. Let's see if it works. Shalom. Yeah, a moment.
Hello, everyone. Once again, let's see.
So maybe I'll use this time, just a few minutes, and it will let other people join us, just to say a few words about the context and the way this lecture actually was born. So I met Andrea in a conference in Zagreb, and we had this nice chat. And Andrea wanted to learn more about what's going on in Israel. It was in September, I think. And we sat and we missed lunch because talking about Israel takes always more than 10 minutes. So we found ourselves hungry, but full. And I tried to explain how complicated and really takes a lot to understand what's going on, especially at these times. It's a great turbulence politically, but of course the last 2 years were really, I think, the most, really a huge trauma since October 7th. When we talked, Andrea, it was in September, we still had refugees also alive and also deceased, and were still there. Right now, this morning, according to this morning, there is one refugee who is known as dead, and we are still waiting for him very much. And actually, the organization that I'm part of, and Merav will explain about another organization in a few minutes, is an organization that kind of was created together with the necessity of the moment, understanding that bringing back the hostages, sorry, I was referring to them as refugees, but the hostages is the most important thing right now. And that means also ceasing fire, because we know that the war also killed hostages, and we understood that it's not a problem of the hostages' families, but rather it's something that every Israeli should keep in his heart and mind, and understand that it's more about our values, the value of life, the value of Judaism, that we talk about Pidyon Shvu'im, the value of taking care for each other, the value of what the state of Israel was born on the sentence of never again, and here we are, it is happening again. And we understood that we need to join together and find a way to support the families, but also help the Israeli society understand that really each one has to take part in this joint effort to bring the hostages back. So we joined together mental health professionals and doctors. It really began as a WhatsApp group that turned to be really very intense, and we found that the best way for us to make people part of it is by lectures. We actually started going around the country from north to south, and we reached, I think it's almost 200,000 people that we reached by these lectures, and trying to explain the Israeli society why this is so important and why they should pursue these values. And when you say something is important, it's like Rachel calling that her son was kidnapped and then killed in captivity, said it's not only what you believe in, it's not only what you think, but it's rather your deeds that matter. So we understood that we have to talk with people and say, you need to get out. If this is something that you care about, you need to step out from your comfort zone and say it and stand for it, and stand in the middle of Tel Aviv or in Jerusalem or in the south, in every place. If this is too much for you, so just go with the pin that we all go with the butterfly. But you need to do an effort in order to keep this society together. And this is where we are now. And we do think that it helped. I think Merav will talk about it later, and definitely Carmit. We feel that it brought people outside. And eventually, it's many, many people that join together, and we are to get towards Hanukkah. It's like a little light that becomes a huge light, and we obviously, the street spoke its values, and it made a difference. So here we are, telling you a little bit about our way, and we're happy that you can join us and listen about our part in Israel for the past 2 years.
I was wondering if you can see the presentation now?
We can see.
No, we can see your Explorer only.
Oh, sorry.
So it's probably on another screen, right?
Merav, so maybe you will start and I will try to send my presentation to Cigal meantime.
Merav is muted.
Hi, sorry. Hello. I'm very grateful for you being here and hearing us. I'll present myself shortly and my connection to this situation. I'm Merav Roth. I'm a clinical psychologist and an Israeli psychoanalyst. And my expertise is in literature and trauma. And the day after the evacuees from Kibbutz Be'eri went to the Dead Sea, I went down to the Dead Sea to establish with colleagues the therapeutic aid for the kibbutz. I still counsel them until today. And also at the beginning of the war, I co-founded and I co-chair until now FLM, which is a civil organization organized by the 3 psychoanalytic institutes in Israel. We gathered them together in one WhatsApp group. We need a big crisis in order to gather together 3 synagogues, right? So this was a big crisis, and we gathered together the 3 institutes, and we asked who is willing to volunteer helping the survivors of the massacre all over the country. And 450 analysts did this on the WhatsApp group, and we began working. And by now we are working, we already had more than 12,000 sessions of therapy. We give each patient 3 years of therapy free of charge, and group support and psychiatric aid and whatever is needed all over the country. It is supported first circle by the state, Social Security, welfare, Ministry of Welfare, Ministry of Defense. And the second and third circles are supported by donations. That's why Cigal said that we will present to you in the chat the link to BOU that Cigal presented, and also to FLM. And by these donations, we simply add more therapies to more victims of the survivors of the massacre, bereaved families, families of the hostages, and we work with the released hostages themselves. And what I'm going to tell you now is based on my work with released hostages, with the families of the hostages, with the bereaved families, with the survivors of October 7, but also as a clinician and a cultural researcher. I'm involved in a coalition of health organizations in Israel that now investigate the whole society's mental health state, which was never worse. I'm sorry to say that the data is quite alarming. For instance, depression doubled itself, anxiety doubled itself, potential PTSD is high, very, very high, never something similar, etc. Okay. So, but I don't want to begin with that. I will begin by telling you a small good story in a way, but also good story in a Jewish sense. I will explain. Last Friday last Friday, Sabbath dinner with my family, my mother brought us a picture of my father and his mother. And I know he was 17. How do I know he was 17? Because he was in uniform, in uniform of the army. And another sign, he was thin. And my father was thin only in one period in his life. He was a fat boy, and then he became quite a fat man. But after the Holocaust, it was a short period when he was really skinny. And in the picture, you see them both smiling, chin up, as the British say, walking in Tel Aviv. And you see on their faces their determination to be alive and happy and strong. And I met the families of the hostages 2 weeks ago with one of our organizations. And I told them about that picture. And I told them that when I saw it, I immediately thought, this is exactly the point that we are in now. Like, after the big atrocity is not over, but closed, most of the hostages and the seized hostages are back. The war is hopefully over, at least ceasefire. And we were, on the one hand, we are all, or many of us are trying to look the same as they looked, chin up, smiling, hoping for a good future. And I told them that I know through my father, who lost his father in the Holocaust in concentration camp, I know through him that these people can have a future, and we can have a future, a good future, with love and families and meaning and big aspirations for our next generations. But at the same time, this moment in our history is a very extremely painful one, and also a very stormy moment. And I speak now mental health. And I told them that I will try to explain to them why in this moment, when they were supposed to be the happiest people because they got their loved ones back, they are so sad and in such agony and so furious and so frustrated. And I told them it is as if for 2 years we were all swimming in the sea in the most terrible wind, against the wind, using all our forces in order to get back home safely. And then we are on the shore now. We know that we are safe now, and we raise our head and we look back and we are shocked, because we just now begin to realize how much loss we are encountering. And I will try to tell you a little bit psychologically what I told them. I will tell you what are we facing? What are we facing? So first of all, we are facing a psyche. All of us, all the Israelis, not only the families of the hostages or the bereaved families or the survivors of the massacre, direct survivors, all of us are facing 2 years of dissociation behind us. Dissociation means we were detached, at least partly, because if we were to be completely involved and and emotional about all that it was happening, we would collapse, because our sisters and brothers were in captivity. Carmit will tell you her personal story about her family. I love Carmit, even her one story. Every second that I'm completely connected to it is such deep sorrow that I would not be able to wake up in the morning and to go to work and to help others and to raise my kids. And so all of the Israelis, in order to survive and in order to help also, and many, many, many Israelis were and are still involved in helping, in, giving a hand, we had to dissociate. We had to cut the ties between our memories and our history and our current emotional state and our understanding and our physical state. And now when we're bringing things together again, it's like a big boom, it's devastating to realize what happened and where were we. We have a deep loss of identity. I was the second generation of a Holocaust survivor. I was the answer. I was the good answer, Israeli state. My father was 13 in Budapest, standing in the street after they were walking to the Danube, and 450 people were shot, and the Danube was red, and he was saved because his mother kicked him into a toilet, a green small toilet home in the street. And when they went out, they had nowhere to go, and they had to go back to the ghetto. And this is a story I've heard so many times as a kid from my father. And he stood there and he knew that when they go back to the ghetto, it can be that tomorrow morning, the Nazis and the Hungarians will take them again to the same Danube. But they had nowhere else to go. No home would open their doors then. And he knew as a 13-year-old that we have to have a state to the Jewish people. And I was his answer. So who am I now? A new atrocity, anti-Semitism all over the world. Who am I? Am I the answer, or is the question open again? And I was a person who lived its life, but so many families in my country now don't have their former jobs, don't have lost many families, lost siblings, brothers, parents, grandparents. In FLM, we have hundreds of, every day I have a WhatsApp message. A 12-year-old living in Hadera lost both her parents. Her grandparents lived with her grandparents. We look for therapy for her. Every day I write so many messages like this and get more and more therapy to these people. So we are encountered with so much loss, with so much agony. The world's basic assumptions that the state is there to protect you, that the army is there to protect you, that the family is a stable thing, that the house, the home, hundreds of thousands of people lost their homes. Their homes were burned down by people. So our perception of the world, of goodness, of human care, of so many things was shattered. So you are disconnected from your basic assumptions. In psychoanalysis, we call it an uncanny state. Freud called it uncanny state, meaning I'm out of everything that was obvious for me. And I need to rewrite my story now. Helplessness, learned helplessness that we felt for 2 years. People needed desperately that the most beloved person will come back, and they had nothing to do. People were in captivity, chained by their feet, and they had nothing they could do. And their mothers were completely hopeless and helpless. So there is an expression in psychoanalysis, in psychology, named learned helplessness. One day after the other, we are trying to influence the world, but it's not influenced by our doings, by our sayings. So the more it goes this way, the more you become helpless, and it's called learned helplessness because you learn that nothing I do matters. So now we need to undo this learned helplessness and to realize that we can influence. And actually, the fact that the hostages came back was because we were not helpless. We were talking to people all over the world and in Israel, and we went to the streets and we had rallies. So we did influence, but you need to realize now, okay, so I can influence the world. So there is a loss of identity, there is a loss of competence, there is a loss of basic trust in the world, there is a loss of my basic assumptions about the world. And all these aspects are now in a process of mourning. We have a long process of mourning ahead of us. But I do want to tell you that I am a great believer in the human resilience, in the human strength to recover. I'm a great believer. And I'm a great believer because I work with traumatic loss for 30 years. And we hear the hostages who came back, who were returned. They didn't come back by themselves. And we hear amazing stories about how imagination can help you, because if you imagine the right world and the right way to treat a person, you can handle humiliation and violence. You just tell yourself, this is not the way I'm supposed to be treated. You remember, you imagine, they imagined trips in the forest with their families, going to the beach with their families. They imagined conversations every day with their families saying, I'll be okay for you, you be okay for me. Love and seeing the other are the most powerful remedies in nature. And we see that through their stories. And also, we need to take the pen and write the story again ourselves. And I met released hostages when they came back after a year and a half in captivity. And the first session I had with them, I told them, listen, you don't allow anyone to call you just a hostage, not even a returnee. This is not your name. You were there before, you are with me now, and you are writing your life story. And that your life story continues. You're not doomed because you were in captivity. Just now we wrote a few lines in your story. And this message, we try to tell also the state of Israel that we need to rewrite our story. We want our government to spread as much money and as much positions for mental health now. We really need that in order to put people on their feet and allow them to rewrite their story after this devastation, after this horrible atrocity. And we also try to rewrite our stories with the Jewish people around the world and with people around the world, trying to tell you, if you don't, there is a lot of riots and rallies against what's going on in Gaza. So most of the people in Israel are signing again and again, stop the war, allow recovery in Gaza. So we tell the world, stop confusing us with the Israeli government. The Israeli society longs for peace. And you see it in polls, 60, 70, really the vast majority percentage, the vast majority of Israel is longing for peace. And we need our allies. The liberal democracy is our values, and it's your values, I believe, if you are in this meeting now. We need you to back us up, not to turn your back away from us. I'm not speaking to you who are here now, but to the world. And I think and feel that the Jewish world and the Israelis need each other, and we need to reconnect. We need to remember by remembering that we share our values, we share our history, we share our hopes for a moral future for us and for our neighbors, for our surroundings. And that's why we speak with you today, because we want to remobilize good movements in the world. And I always quote Rabbi Heschel, who walked with Martin Luther King towards Montgomery. And when he went back to his hotel in the evening, he wrote in his diary, "Today my feet were praying." And I always say that I'm inspired by this expression because I think we need to pray with our feet. We need to pray by our actions. And we want you to be our partners in that, to act, to speak, to voice our wish for recovery, our need for partnership. And that's why we really thank you for being here and helping us tell you that and hoping for it to happen for us together. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Merav. Very impressive words, and yeah, in a very, very difficult situation, but also thank you for the hopeful words and stories. And Carmit, is it fine now for the presentation?
I'll ask for Cigal's help. Let's see if it works, and if not, I will just talk without the presentation.
Okay, so the stage is yours.
One second. Because I have my technical man. Okay, so now it's on the video. Okay.
By Andrea's laugh, I think if we would send it to her, she would help us, right?
No, I'm totally incapable, but I also have a technical helper at home. He's actually in the
so much better.
He's in the meeting as well.
Okay.
No, I feel very much like you.
I see. Okay. No one in this, if there's someone in the group that is an expert, please raise your hand, and we will send it to you.
Now it's
Hey, wonderful.
Ah, there it is.
Ah,
Wonderful.
there it is. Thank
Bravo.
you. Okay, so Cigal, I assume you know my story, so you can pass it forward to the next slide. So
Yes,
nice to meet you all.
Do you need to press that? Okay.
Is it okay, Cigal?
It was okay, but
It was okay, but now we don't see it anymore.
One second. We'll manage it in a minute.
Okay, so maybe I'll start by introducing myself. My name is Carmit Palty Katzir. I was born and raised in a small community in the south of Israel called Kibbutz Nir Oz, which no one ever knew where it was until October 7th. And I left my kibbutz when I was studying social work. But my brother and my mom and my dad stayed there. It's a very close community to the border with Gaza. It's a mile distance, 1.5 kilometers. And when I grew up there, our relationship with our neighbors were totally, I mean, not totally, but overall okay. I remember as when I was 4 or 5, we used to walk and say hello and go back to our community. But in the past 20 years, it's escalated and become worse every year. My brother, Elad Katzir, was a farmer. He used to work in the fields that are bordered with Gaza.
Excuse me, just Carmit, can you see the PowerPoint?
No, not yet.
No, you can't see it? Okay. 1 second. Okay, you continue, and we're working on it.
Okay. So Elad, my brother, was a farmer. He used to live in the kibbutz. And part of living in the kibbutz next to my mom and dad, yes, thank you. So you can now see who I'm talking about. So you can see Elad, my brother, and my mom, Hannah, and my dad, Rami. You can move forward, Cigal. Okay, so I want to tell you a little bit about October 6th, the day before. So a day before was an ordinary day in the kibbutz and in Israel, or at least that's what we believed. On October 6th, Elad went, like every other Friday, to support another family, which he didn't know before, the Goldin family, the parents of Hadar Goldin. Lieutenant Hadar Goldin was a soldier that was fighting and fallen in combat within Gaza, and his body was held hostage as a prisoner of war. And you can move forward, Cigal. And Elad used to stand there every week, every Friday with the Goldin family. He didn't know them before. You can still move forward. And he said that their very basic saying was that Israelis and Jews leave no one behind. And Elad thought that if Hadar went to protect him as a person who lives in the south of Israel, he should stand up for him as well and to fight for his return. And back on that day, you can see it's a very, very small rally, very small gathering. Almost, I think there were 30 at the top, 30 people at the most. Elad used to come there every Friday since the first Friday they encountered until October 6th. That was the last time he joined the rally. I want to show you, if it works, I hope it will work, a video of Elad, my brother, on a rally from Kfar Saba, the town that Hadar Goldin's parents lives in, to Gaza. They tried to walk as close as they could to the Gaza border to say what they have to say about the obligation of the Israeli government to return all the hostages. Back then, we had 4 hostages before October 7th, Hadar Goldin, Oron Shaul, which both of them were soldiers, deceased soldiers, fallen soldiers, and 2 living people, Avera Mengisto and Hisham Asad. Both are suffering for mental health, and that's why they came up entering Gaza in the first place. Let's see if it works.
We'll try and do it. It doesn't work.
It's supposed to be embedded in the video.
Right. Somehow.
Okay, so
Yeah. I'm sorry.
okay, so we can move forward. You can skip this one. So on the morning of October 7th, I guess you all know that, but I wanted to take a minute just to say what happened, because sometimes we forget how it all started. So we started on the morning of Saturday, which was also a holiday in Israel. It was a combination of Shabbat and holiday, 6:29 a.m. in the morning. All the south and the center of Israel was bombed with missile attacks. Approximately 4,300 rockets were shot at Israel suddenly, in a very sudden way. The Israeli army, the IDF, was not ready for it in any way. nor the state of Israel or its leadership. We had 6,000 terrorists invading into multiple communities and into the Nova Music Festival next to the border, next to Kibbutz Re'im. And by the end of those 2 very intensive days of fight, we had multiple dead casualties, missing and kidnapped people. It was complete chaos. It took many, many days, I think approximately 2 or 3 or even more. My brother was considered to be missing for 44 days. For 44 days, we had no idea whether he's alive or dead or kidnapped or was burned alive, because that was also something that happened in my community in Kibbutz Nir Oz. You can move forward, Cigal. I took a few screenshots of the course of our corresponding in this morning. I will not go through all of it because it's in Hebrew, but the main thing that's important for me to you to see is how it was shocking to see and to hear that my family is under attack, as many other families and people in Israel. We realized that something really unusual is going on. Even though we're living very close by to the border, never ever has a terrorist entered my kibbutz. So I will just read you one short message that my brother is telling us that they got that someone from the kibbutz let them know that there are terrorists inside the kibbutz. And then we told him, okay, but if you are in your safe room, in your home shelter, you'll be fine because it's a safe room, it's a home shelter. Just lock the door and you'll be fine. And we didn't know that it's not going to be okay. He can't lock the door is not locked. And the terrorists are able to go inside the safe house because it's not built for terrorists invading, it's just built for missiles attack. So in 9 a.m. he told us, his sister, we remain 2 sisters, that we need to get the army or the police forces to the kibbutz because there is a horrible fight with terrorists inside the kibbutz. You can see the audio messages. I could hear sorry, can you hear me?
Yeah, you froze for a moment, but now it's
so in
better.
9:42, I heard a gunshot, and then I called him, even though everyone write each other that it's not a good idea to call because maybe the terrorist will see that there is someone who's hiding or is trying to stay quiet. But I couldn't handle the stress anymore, so I called him. And he told me one sentence. This sentence was, I can't talk to you right now. I have terrorists inside my home. And then the phone fell down. I heard some gunshots, Arabs, and that's it. I never heard from him again, nor my parents. And then I thought that the communication, the connection just fell. And I didn't understand what was happening for many, many, many hours. That night, I only knew, Cigal, you can move forward. And we'll skip that in also. I only knew that the case of my kibbutz. It took a very long while to gather this information. But what I knew about my family was that my mom, my dad, and my brother are missing. That's what I knew on October 7th. And only by October 8th, I found out that my dad was murdered that day, on October 7th, in his home, and that my mom was kidnapped. We got a terrible Telegram video showing the terrorists holding her on a motorcycle and just driving like crazy to Gaza. A 76-year-old woman who can hardly walk. They carried her brutally on the motorcycle, and she fell, and they just picked her up again and brought her into Gaza like a trophy. And my brother, I told you that 44 days, no one knew what happened with him until we got a sign of life. And then we discovered that he's also was taken hostage and he's alive in Gaza. And then we got 2 videos of him talking in Gaza, from Gaza. But I want to give you just a little taste of what happened in my community of Kibbutz Nir Oz. So out of 400 people, which was the size of the community, 117 people, I mean children, women, and men, were murdered or abducted from the community. 65 were dead, that 50 murdered on October 7, and 14 other people were kidnapped alive and later murdered in captivity. 83 people were kidnapped from the kibbutz. Some of them managed to escape, some of them were shot and murdered on their way, and 76 of them were taken into the depth of hell in Gaza. They were tortured, they were treated with violence, they were starved, they were beaten. And we got to have 53 of them back through hostage release agreements, 53 living hostages, and 27 deceased have been returned to us. And the last hostage from Kibbutz Nir Oz was returned for 755 days, which was almost just a month ago. We buried our last hostage. Cigal, can you move forward, please? Thank you. So I just wanted to have for you to see that they're not only statistics and not only numbers. Each and every one of them is a whole world. We can move forward. So I would love to tell you that I was getting myself together and going to fight for my family, but actually that's not what happened. What happened was that I was sitting in my home here in Haifa, in the north of Israel, and I was shocked. I was freezing. I was waiting for an adult, for a leadership, for an officer, for a minister, for a prime minister, for a president to come and tell me how this situation is going to be solved. How do I get my mom and my brother back? And it didn't happen. They didn't show up. And then I realized that we need to be the grown-up in the room, and we need to get ourselves together and go and fight for our own families, because right now, in the state of the war, the Israeli government is not prioritizing the return of the hostages. And we did it, and we were everywhere in the streets next to the border with Gaza, in Tel Aviv, in the hostage square, in the Knesset, in the government, wherever we could, to raise our voice for the people whose voice couldn't be heard. We can move forward. This slogan said, "Whoever abandoned them must bring them back, a hostage deal now." So it was pretty obvious to me from the very first days that it won't help me just to say, bring them home. Whose responsibility is it to bring them home? So one of the critic was that, why aren't you complaining the hostage families to Hamas or to the UN or to the world? And I think it was important to do that, but I always say that I didn't vote for Hamas or for jihad, and my the government who is responsible of me and of my brother and of my mother as Israeli citizens is the Israeli government. So that's why I was aiming my critique to the Israeli government. I want to tell you a little bit about captivities and the returnees. So this is my sweet mom, Hannah Katzir. And she didn't survive a lot. She survived 11 months exactly from the day she was returned until the day she passed away. She came back to Israel in a very poor shape. She was very, very ill, and she wasn't ill before. She came back with severe heart condition, with severe lung condition, with fungus, with the conditions in Gaza made her terribly sick. She was entered to an ICU, an intensive care unit, and was under induced coma for many, many days. She was hospitalized for more than 7 months. Me and my sister, we had a room actually in the hospital, and we were just by her side all the time while fighting on my brother's life, who was still in Gaza and was still alive and could be still saved. And we were extremely frustrated and extremely enraged about everyone, about everything, about how can't you understand that people's lives are on stake, and that there are living people in Gaza, are living family in Gaza in terrible situation. We got horror videos from captivity straight into our homes, showing hostages being tortured, showing hostages giving testimonies about what they want and what they expect and how badly are they being treated. And all this time we were fighting on two goals. One was to keep my mom alive and healthy as she could be. And our other mission was to bring Elad and other hostages back alive, that whoever was kidnapped alive will be brought back to us alive. And unfortunately, it didn't happen. We can move forward. But it did happen for many, many other families, and I'm so happy and grateful for that. Renana, my close friend, got to hug her boys. 2 teenagers were kidnapped and separated and were abused in captivities. And for Ditza Heyman, all the picture here are a friend only from my community, from Kibbutz Niroz, and they allowed me to share their stories. Ditza Heyman on the left corner is an 85-year-old woman, grandparent who were kept alone by an UNRWA worker who held her hostage by herself for 53 days. You can see in the left down corner, Keren Munder, who was kidnapped with her son and with her mom, 3 generations in captivity. Her father was separated from them and was murdered in captivity. Each picture here is a has so many circles of families, of bereaved families, of hostage families. I always call Kibbutz Nir Oz my bereaved community, because I think each and every one of us has his own story. We can move forward. And then we got another hostage deal, hostage agreement, life-saving hostages agreement. And we got to see people that we were extremely afraid that are no longer alive. We got to have Sagi Dekelfen from my kibbutz, and the very sweet young soldiers, women soldiers, who we were so afraid that all the worst thing will happen to them, and I'm sure some of them did happen to them. And we got to save so many lives because of our protest, because of the unimaginable strength I think the Israeli society has shown through our soldiers in the IDF, through so many acts of support in the hostage families, in the bereaved families. It felt like a really big hug from the Israeli society. Unfortunately, not always, or never, almost never, from the Israeli government. We can move forward. I don't know if we have time, but maybe if it will be interesting for you, I will tell you a little bit about all the new words that are in this slide. I always feel like we have to come up with a new language, just like Merav said, that we are rewriting this book, but we didn't even have the words for it. What you see in the picture here is a frame. A picture was taken in my brother's funeral. We didn't know what's happening with my brother. We got videos of him alive in January twice. And then we got a phone call from a very high-ranked officer telling us that there is severe concern to his life, that they're afraid that he might no longer be alive, but they can confirm it. They're not 100% positive. And I was shocked by this call. I mean, I told him, what am I supposed to do with this information? So you should tell me right away whether he's alive or dead, because I don't know how to grasp a gray zone of not being alive or dead. And then I found out that there is a gray zone when you don't know, which there is an uncertainty about someone's life. You don't know if he's alive or dead. And it's not just theoretical. Many of the families got and announced that their loved ones are no longer alive, but they didn't have any forensic evidence, so they couldn't know for sure. They couldn't know for sure because they say until we don't have a grave, we can't be sure that he's alive or dead. And I also didn't tell you that, but 2 days before my mom was returned, we got an information from Jihad that she was killed in captivity, and then she came back alive. So we didn't know if we can trust the intelligence. We didn't know if we can trust the words. We didn't know if we can trust our own army. And that's sad, but it's true, because everything was so chaotic. So the hostage families are dealing with a whole new scenarios that I don't think anyone encountered before. I just want to give you some of the new language that we had to find. Ambiguous loss, which is a term that some of us know from whole different circumstances of illness. But how can you understand your loved one being away from you and you keep on thinking about him, but he's not available to you physically? So that's an experience of ambiguous loss or disruptive bereavement, because you can't start a process of bereavement when you don't know whether your loved one is alive or dead. Or delayed grief, when I had to sit Shiva on my brother 3 months after he was killed, because then just only 3 months after he was killed, his body was retrieved. So everything become really complicated, and complicated is to say the least. This whole process is being disrupted and being very complicated. Okay, we can move forward. So I try to capture in a frame how my days are looking. We have now, in a year and a half, 3 new graves, but we also have a lot of memories and good memories of a very happy family, which I hope will continue to be happy, not full, but happy in a different way. We can move forward. And it's not the end of the story in many ways. Cigal, can you move? Thank you. I think this fight for the hostages was not just fight for the hostages, for their return. It was an act of solidarity and love in the Israeli society. We fought for the hostages, but for our own families. I'm talking about the Israeli society as a whole, for the community, for the societies, for our own mental health, for mending our personal and mental health, and for our social resilience. Okay, move forward. And one thing that I'm thinking a lot these days is, where do we begin to repair everything that was broken? Because just Merav said, the whole basic assumptions of our living is being shattered. But it's been 2 years and we're still living here, and we need to somehow do something. So I try to think what the core values of even like the very basic conditions that need to be given. So the first one is humanity and compassion. Every victim and a person whose a person whose entire world has collapsed. They didn't choose it. So none of us chose to be in this situation. And it's something that I try to explain to every person that's supposed to provide us any service, that we're not just the regular customers. We didn't choose to be in this very low and dark place. Listening and autonomy. Let people tell their own stories in their own words. Just like Merav said, I'm always asking and trying to hear how a person present himself as a victim, as a survivor, as a winner. It varies so much. Avoiding of making assumptions about anyone. Every person, I mean, some of us share exactly the same story, but we tell it in a whole different way. And it tells something about where we are in this process. And I think the most two bullets that are important to me, one is recognition and validation that enable and are conditions of healing. The truth, knowing not what happened, seeking the truth, demanding accountability and appropriate legislation. All of these are things that we, the hostage families, but not only the hostage families, also professionals are fighting for. That people in Israel, especially in our own government, but also in the world, that the world will know that sexual crime had happened in Israel. And for the people in Israel to know that in my kibbutz, for example, the IDF and and the police forces didn't come, just failed to show up. And the last terrorist has left the kibbutz before the first soldier got in. And those things must be investigated. And nowadays in Israel, there is a huge fight about the need, or not about the need, about the possibility of the thing getting the investigation they deserve. And the last thing is nothing about us without us. Many times people think that if you are part of an infected or a community that was victim to a crime, it will be too hard for you to represent yourself. But I'm saying the opposite. I'm saying that we must include victims in decision-making processes, give them a seat at the table, not just, I don't like to be just, get a questionnaire or tell us what you think about. I want to be to take an active role in my own healing, in my own community, and in the way people understand our needs, and then building the appropriate answers or solutions. And I also believe it's part of healing because it's learning from the field, and it's restoring power and agency to the field. And I want to end by saying, will be the last slide, Cigal quoted it, but I want to return that I truly believe in what Rachel Goldberg-Pauling said, that we are not what we say, we are not what we think, and we are not even what we believe. In this life, we are what we do. And I try to do as much as I can, and I really appreciate everyone who do something to support, to improve, to protest, to say, what are we fighting for? And it's not just the hostages, it's about all the good values we should fight for. I think maybe we'll sorry, Cigal, if it's still possible, I just wanted to show Ran Vili, our last hostage. We still have a death for him to bring him back home.
Yes,
Let's see if it works.
Sorry, I hope I'll manage to do it quickly, but if not, 1 second.
So actually, last night, Thai citizen was returned for burial, and we, out of 255 hostages, we got 1 hostage to return. His name is Ran Guili, and he was a police officer who should stay at home because he broke his shoulder. But on October 7th, when he realized what's going on, he didn't use his broken shoulder as, he didn't say, okay, I have a broken shoulder, so I better stay at home. Even that, what the doctor told him, he just went and fight and protected a whole kibbutz Alumin. And we need to bring him back home. The one after that?
Yeah. Ran Guili.
Yeah, and his father told Ran Guili is my son, but he's everyone's child. You can see his mom waiting for him. And I also say about the Gvili family that they got an announcement from the IDF that Ran is no longer alive, that he was shot to death. But they don't accept it, and they still praying and ask everyone to pray with them for him to be brought alive. And I so hope so. But I so understand deeply the conflict of not being able to believe that your loved one is no longer alive until you get him back.
Thank you very much, Carmit, for sharing your story. I'm very sorry for your losses and for everything you had to go through. Hard to imagine how it's possible to heal after such a trauma, but this is what we are hearing now, so it must be possible. Cigal, I think now it's your turn to talk, and then I already have a question, but probably the others also. Keep in mind the time, please.
Right. I'll just say a few words, but before that, I think maybe we'll make place for questions, because I'm listening to Carmit's story, and obviously I heard it so many times, and in Carmit words and my knowledge, and each time I'm just holding my head and my heart, and I cannot believe the atrocity that one family went through, Carmit and her family. It's just really, it's unimaginable. And as you said, Merav, before, like being in touch with it, it's devastating. But on the other hand, and I appreciate you all being here, I think being a witness to Carmit's story and being in touch is very, very important. Because when we are not in touch, then bad things can happen again. When we are not aware of this trauma, as we said after the Holocaust, so people can behave the same, and we are not, we can, forget our basic assumptions, as we said, Merav, and the truth can be distorted, and new names can be given to these atrocities. So I want to say one word before that, just before you ask Carmit questions. I want to say that Carmit has a very clear and brave voice in Israel. Carmit appears in the media a lot. We're waiting for her words. She brings a clear voice, looking for the truth or everything she said about recognition, about we want to be part of taking decisions about us. No more being in this a zone of not knowing. I think this is something that probably Carmit feel very strongly about, and I think that Carmit, through her trauma, her own trauma, is helping us actually understand what we need to do. So thank you so much. So maybe if people want to ask me or Merav, and then I'll say a few words to finish up.
Thank you. So anybody has a question, just please unmute yourself and ask. Okay, go ahead.
I actually have so many questions. I'm also very emotional. Thank you so much for sharing all that you have shared with us. And I'm just deeply touched and impressed how you're doing this. I don't know how you do it, but and I'm interested in two things. One is, Merav, you told us about how imagination can help, like how imagination was a coping strategy of the hostages during captivity. And I'm interested in knowing what does that mean when they come back? I mean, it's not something that you can just turn off, right? It's something that you develop as a coping strategy. So how do they go back to normal? I know they cannot go back to normal, but how do you kind of stop this imagination as a coping strategy? So that would be my question to you. And maybe to all three of you, a question about the relation between you as a private person and you as a professional. Carmit, for example, you're a social worker, but you're also deeply affected by what has happened. So how did this, or is this changing the relation, the link between these two different roles? Yeah, this is my cluster of questions.
I will say in 2 sentences, because we are actually out of time. So I guess the thing to say is that it raises so many questions, and we need more time together in order to answer, and we will need a lifetime to answer, right? But I will just say, and I think it's an answer to all of us with related to our situation, that in trauma you have 4 time circles: past, the trauma time, present, and future. And healing comes from interweaving the 4 circles together. So imagination is there, but also history is there, and the current time is there, and trauma is there, but also psychological development and spiritual development, which was amazing, is there. And healing comes from holding all this together, interweaving all this together, and until the end of life, you will, on the one hand, trauma will be there, but not only trauma. This is healing. Healing is not vanishing trauma or these coping strategies, but interweaving them into life and into the other psychological processes until you can live your life with the traumatic parts inside of you. And I guess it has also to do with the second question. It's actually the same. You slowly interweave all your internal parts until they can, it takes time. Carmit can tell you, it's not, it takes a long time.
I would just say in a sentence that I used to work before October 7th at the therapy.
Carmit, you're stuck again. Carmit was working as a therapist until October 7th, but not ever since. Because it's not. Yeah, I answered for you, darling, because you're stuck in the computer. So I said for you what you said. You don't know, but we are so much together that we can speak for each other. Yes. So it takes time. It takes a long time of mourning, of processing, and of interweaving atrocity into life.
Absolutely. Maybe I'll answer that a bit later. I just want to make sure that, if anyone has questions, also Merav and Carmit.
I think we're
at the edge of time. Yeah.
I don't want to push the limits.
Right. So I'll answer your question, Andrea, by what I wanted to say. And as Merav, I'm not sure if I'm in a second or third, or maybe my mother was born in 44 actually in a working camp. She survived, and she has a birth certificate with the Nazi eagle. I think it's in Yad Vashem. She's probably one of the only kids that were born in the Holocaust. And she went through a lot, and eventually her father was killed in Auschwitz. And it's interesting because I work with trauma as Merav, and I work with young kids. And I think it's only a few years ago I understood why I work with kids and trauma, how interesting, how the subconscious is also the therapist is not reachable. And then I found myself now in October 7th, after October 7th, actually part of the team waiting for the kids when they came back from captivity, and helping kids as Merav that went through the atrocities. And I looked at it and I saw the numbers, and I saw the great pain And I felt that this should stop. And I felt that I cannot anymore just be on the side that takes care of something that happened, but I need also to prevent it from happening. And I was also very active before the war, because I think that what went on in Israel was part of it. I think that the things were all very obvious, and our government decided not to be aware of it. And I'm really now very worried about what's going on and going to be from now on. And I must say that we need you. We need you because you have actually, I think you have the most difficult position, being abroad, and I understand that this is mostly Jewish community. And I think that on one hand, we need to advocate for us and advocate for the stories. As Carmit said, these stories need to be known. Things happen. What happened really happened, right? And awful things happened to Israelis in their, being held out of their beds. And this should be known to the world, because also the world, and you know it very well, is trying to, rewrite history. And when you rewrite, as Merav said, you need to rewrite it right. It has to be true. So this is one position that we need you in. But then there is the other position, and this is helping us because, as Merav said, most of the people here want to live in peace, peace inside, peace towards our other people. And if there is one thing that I learned from my parents being Holocaust survivors, is although they lost all their family, my mother never had a father, I never had a grandfather, when they talk about other people or other, the Arabs, the Palestinians, they always talk with compassion, because in the situation where we are now, we are strong enough. Israel is strong enough. Israel has a strong enough army to be compassionate and to be safe. And this is the position that I took to myself. And of course, we need to have, all of us have kids in the army. We are all very worried about them. But we also want to live in peace, because it will be impossible to go through generation from generation, knowing that our kids and grandkids will go to the army and die. And the violence in the Israeli society is also right now in a bad stage. And this government advocates for it, I must say. It doesn't work with compassion. It doesn't give any words that are kind of, to look for resonance. And this needs to stop. So my point of view, and the part that I'm still now advocating for, is really to make sure that this will never happen again, and to be able to be compassionate to our neighbors, to ourselves, to everyone that I work with, that my actual neighbors, no matter which religion they are, what is their preference, like going together with Megillat Ha'atzmaut, right? And this is the place I'm right now, and definitely Carmit by the life that she shows, and Merav by the way that she advocates for it in so many places, and the way she's treating so many populations. For me, these are my role models. So,
thank you very much. Any other questions? So maybe I'll use the opportunity and ask a last one. I think Carmit mentioned something like the Israeli society as a whole, was fighting for the hostages. And I think what I immediately thought, and this didn't only happen to the Israeli society, but also to the Jewish communities everywhere in the world. It's not not really as one, as a whole. It was very, very much split actually, and there were not maybe you can add something about that, like how you perceived it being in one of the parts.
Yeah. So actually, I was thinking when I talked about it that it's not 100% true that all the Israeli society. I think all the Israeli society wanted the hostages back, but we had different views about how we can achieve this goal. And I know from visiting the US that the Jewish community was having a hard time too, for many reasons. Part of it where many people didn't agree with what the Israeli government, with the decisions that are being made about the war, and that the risk the war and anti-Semitism put them in. And I think things that are happening in Israel are affected many of the greater community of the Jewish people in general all over the world. And it's not just an Israeli problem. It's a problem of all of us, and we should. I'm so happy to be here today because I think this is part of what we can do together to see how we perceive the opportunity to bring more peace and justice, and to work together through the goals we believe in.
If I can add, I think, first of all, the quick wave of anti-Semitism all over the world was a part of our trauma. It was so surprising and alarming and devastating for us. We were sure that we will be so supported from the Jewish world and from the world in general. And people say it's not about anti-Semitism, it's about what happened in Gaza, but it was much before what happened in Gaza came. And until today, there are many, many more people and children in Syria, for instance, and we don't see people around the world shouting on the streets, save the Syrian children. They should, and I would join them, but we need to realize that there is a part that is anti-Semitic, and not only feeling for the society in Gaza, the population in Gaza, which is absolutely devastating what is going on there. And I really hope and pray and shout for the recovery of Gaza. So it's a part of our trauma, and that's why, and a part of it is ignorance. When people sing from the river to the sea, the hostages come back and they say, in every house you have a map of Israel, and we're supposed to be vanished, dead in the sea. This is from the river to the sea. This is the place from the river to the sea is Israel. So this means the people are singing all over the world, vanish the Jewish, the Israeli population, and they don't know that. So information is so important, and that's why these meetings are so important. That's why your voice is so important. Wherever you go, in your synagogues, in your work, wherever you can, just to say that we need to look into things more clearly and help each other to rejoin values, liberal values, democratic values, Jewish values, human values, and bring forces together to amend this crazy world. It's not only in Israel, of course, it's all over the world now. Yes, so I hope I'm answering you, Rachel.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I think also the Jewish values and the human values are good as a closing word. I think we can definitely all agree on that, and hopefully, the process of healing will. It has begun, and I hope it will. I hope we will get back also the last remaining hostage and can continue on this path, and that things will look better soon. So thank you again, Cigal, Merav, and Carmit, very much for sharing your wisdom and your stories. And thank you to all the listeners and viewers for participating. I will share either tomorrow or the day after, I'm not sure, when I will be able to with you some of the documents that Cigal shared with me about the organizations. So I will send them to you by email, to everybody who registered for the webinar. And if there are any questions coming up afterwards, so just write to info@nif.ch, and we will either be able to answer the questions directly, or we will get in touch with the three ladies and share the answers. So have a nice evening, and thank you very much.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you, Rachel.
Thank you, Rachel.
Thank you very much.
everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Good
Bye,
night.
bye, bye.